Hi everybody, I'm here like usual. The mistakes of my past are once again here to haunt me. Last year in good old 2024, I made a collection of videos documenting a complete playthrough of Wizard101, and I'd say to an extent I've been burdened with knowledge. I mean, I always wondered what laid at the end of Wizard101, so actually going through it was as straining as it was intriguing. One thing I failed to emphasize in my 4-hour retrospective series was the feelings I held on the game myself, and truthfully, I saw the entire greater game as a terrific childhood MMO, right alongside Club Penguin for me personally. There was a legitimate sense of adventure, and the rampant difficulty of this game has let it stick in my heart more than I give off. But this is me looking into the greater game, not just the respective arcs or worlds within them. When I first talked about Wizard101, I made a big deal formatting it to talk about the stories of the respective areas and how they correlate with the greater game. But with only a few exceptions, I didn't really express my general thoughts on the worlds themselves, just when convenient or when I really had something to address. So in today's discussion, I plan on doing the exact opposite of that very specific thing. I split my thoughts on how each world looked, how they were used, how the gameplay differed between them, and you fellas gotta remember that this is based off a single blind playthrough, and I had a lot to say about them all. I cut the lineup into 23 separate worlds, ignoring Pirate 101 because in my opinion that's a separate game that shouldn't be counted for this list in specific. I split up Grizzleheim and Wintertusk, ignored the dungeons. I'm making exceptions for Darkmore and Wisteria because they both have enough content to be considered their own things. One more thing, if you wanna watch this and haven't watched my previous videos on the entire Wizard101 game on my other channel, I would highly recommend watching that first. This is a second opinion. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen this series. Without further ado, let's plagiarize at last place.
Disappointment in the game of life!
Caramel is simply put the worst part of the game. It's meant to be the intro of Arc 4, yet it doesn't introduce anything besides the Cabal until the very end. Now, this is a problem in a lot of the worlds, but here it was especially a major concern for me personally. You go to Caramel to attend a Cabal Arcanum summit following the events of Arc 3. Get introduced to the old one, witness a technical death, it's alright. The story otherwise is simply talking down to a corrupt candy enterprise, Nana's Caramel Delights. I enjoy Nana, but otherwise everything here is too on the nose. It was too in your face about the jokes and the plot, other than the highlight of the Twitter account Nana made. This is still the best part of this area. It's not even technically part of it. The gameplay is more mundane and monotonous, the cheat fights are laughably annoying, and the aspect that upsets me the most in comparison to everything else is just how it looks. Now, the physical appearance of worlds is, in my opinion, the main layer of concern. It's how the world sticks and how it's memorable. Unfortunately, the premise with this world kind of falters because there are so many gross and dingy places it takes up a majority of it. I understand the point of it, it's supposed to be whimsical, but this is also meant to be like a candy world. It feels like there's something missing. Maybe an increase of saturation could help. Overall, this felt like an odd spot on my quest. It really had me concerned for the remainder of Arc 4, and I think COVID might have been a factor as a result, making this falter as well. But even then, I really struggled to get into the swing of enjoying this location, bored by the story, bothered by the fights, uncomfy regarding the location. Maybe it could have worked. I don't know. There's a vision, and that vision irked with me.
Oh, great heavens!
So the classic worlds are about what you would expect. It's the other ones designed to be on a simple end before the story really got into getting more complex in later arcs. It was before Wizard101 expanded into this giant multi-saga expedition. Because of that, Arc 1 is a victim of simple story. Stop Malistaire from returning to Dragon Spire, reawaken the Dragon Titan to revive his wife, and risk destruction of the Spiral. It's very easygoing for the dumb children, slurping carrot juice across 5 worlds, but they stretch it across 5 worlds. Now, being the intro, it's fine, but then it makes some points to feel too pointless. Enter Marleybone. Marleybonians are the worst species in the game. No competition. Any world where Marleybonians are prominent lost points, but we're also lower on this ranking by pure coincidence, so I hate the location for setting them up beyond Croctopia. This world's next, by the way, don't spoilers. A lot of locations are rooftops, clock towers, or factories. Though I really enjoyed the main hub and prison, completely separate vibe, and I thought they were well executed. In the end, this is a short world with a limited collection of areas with an insufferable species, but you should have figured that out when it was revealed they were British. The plot of the world itself is especially annoying, essentially following the Croctopia journey to find the sarcophagus of souls. It's immediately discovered by the Marleybonians, who are hoarding it in their museum. And even though it's right there, even though we have the contact information of Merle Ambrose and a ton of others, we can't take it away. We have to lower the crime rate, and it ends up being a waste of time because Malistaire's a jerk about it and he steals it regardless. That's kind of it. I think my ranking could only go up if they redid the entire world's hypnosis, like what they did with the Selenopolis update, giving getting the chance to add more stakes instead of mitigating the progress being made. Justice was not done here, and it sucks. It was okay on a gameplay end, and again, I defend it for being so early on. There's a sense of getting into the rhythm and expanding on the story. We're watching NPCs drag out content that virtually doesn't matter or feels like it amounts to nothing. Gonna hear this comparison a lot, but a good chunk of my problems with Wizard101 match with what I don't like about One Piece. These annoying characters stalling out things that are minute and minuscule to the greater story. Marleybone is Skypiea, but with dogs and worse. Croctopia was the most I was concerned during my playthrough. After this very solid intro via Wizard City, we're thrusted into Croctopia, which feels ridiculously tiny in comparison before the expansions. What doesn't help is the fact that literally every combat area is pyramids and tombs, with very, very few exceptions. A majority of these were also generic, albeit nice looking paths. Once again, those rotten British dogs show up, making it everyone else's problem, and then requires reuniting the Order of the Fang. Story-wise, the content revolving around Alhazred and balanced magic is a cool aspect, and I wish more was done with it. It's just that, like, it's really repetitive during the first half that seems more aimless. But that kind of just comes from Wiz in general having bad habits with extending stories. But they deserve some leeway for being this early on in an early area. The concerning part for me is what this world represents. This is like the first area you gotta pay with a membership. And if I'm being honest, Croctopia should be free at this point. Like, since 2008, the paywall has not moved. It's a bit ridiculous considering how much stuff there is now. And if you're in a position like me, dropping a bunch of real world money to embark on this adventure, it in the end feels like, uh-oh, I really hope this isn't gonna be like the whole paywall the whole time. And it isn't. The game gets much better from this point on, and the paywall makes sense, but come on. Again, it's just like Marleybone. Didn't do that great, but at least the story had the Mander species. Good job for that.
Buzz, look, an alien! Where?
When you enter Celestia, there's a lot riding on this world. It is meant to be the true underwater location of the game, even introducing the permanent skill to breathe underwater, allowing for a ton of location variety being possible as we've seen in almost every world from this point on. It also has the best world backstories, retelling an Atlantis story and introducing the astral magic concept, massively expanding upon the combat of the game and getting slightly longer recently. Again, thanks to the Selenopolis update expanding upon this intro. However, this is gross. We got the Marleybonians down 3 ranks on that alone, but then we got the underwater segments, which in my opinion do not look good, but it will improve from here. If the coloring was better, I think it could have worked. The Celestian areas where we gain astral abilities and knowledge are beautiful though. It's just that, it's like 10% of the world tops. Most of the dome segments aren't really my thing, these being gross coloring meshed with some missed potential. A lot of this area feels really small to me. It all feels cluttered and crammed above all else. Though to be fair, it introduces Morganth, who immediately runs away. They just got a commercial. And the gameplay in this world, weirdly enough, kind of bothered me. At the very start of the game, it introduces hugging sidewalks to avoid getting pulled into fights when being dragged into an unneeded battle. It's stupid, annoying, and Celestia does a terrible job at some points, making it impossible to avoid fights. No idea why it is, but some of the hitboxes to get pulled seemed really out of whack and suffered for it. But hey, they got the Platypus tribe. It was cool. Bring them back.
Aren't you put your name in a goblet of fire?
Bootleg Wizard City is so fun in premise. This could have easily been its own major world. It's just that the devs haven't really added upon this portion of the spiral, and we kind of suffer for it. At a random point between arcs 1 and 2, Merle requests competing for the Spiral Cup, the Wizard Goblet of Fire. And then you don't really do that much tournament. Instead, we gotta deal with the trees and roots and all that stuff, causing problems to the greater city of Wisteria, so Pigswig Academy, being this magic school that focuses on cantrips over the more objectively beneficial magic, makes it the problem of Ravenwood Wizards competing for the Spiral Cup. The whole premise of us being the potential suspect of the Spiral Cup is dumb. Also, if it was a big deal, they should have taken more measures to protect it from being stolen. So then maybe there could have been an extended portion following us hiding from Belladonna Crisp, who believes they stole the cup, and we gotta prove our innocence. Not to mention, gameplay-wise, this is easy. It feels more like a single-day expedition, a steamroll depending on where you go throughout this area. It's a good palate cleanser if you come in under the mindset that you're solving a small crisis on your own, or maybe tired of losing between arcs 1 and 2 and need to steamroll if you don't have Grizzleheim as an option. It's a fun mini-world that you can do by yourself. To an extent though, it's a little disappointing. A lot more could have been done here. And though I really like the idea of making life magic the enemy of this world, it's so minor and mild that it feels underwhelming in the end. The best way I would describe this area is when the Pokemon anime gets a movie. Most anime movies for that matter, where the movie's treated like their own things and events, making no canon sense in timeline or location of characters. So if Wizard101 was a show, they'd make Wisteria nice little side movie, and I don't think anyone would realistically have issues with that. Wizard101 would actually make for a good show on a random streaming service. I would write that. I don't know, it bums me out to see how much of this area introduces a new school, teases a bunch of other worlds like Mirage and beyond, which is crazy to see what was teased now knowing what actually came into fruition. But I hope a revisit can do this area some justice. Also, Belladonna Crisp isn't real, stop being goons.
Patrick's right, Squidward. Sea bears are no laughing matter.
So this is technically cheating, but Grizzleheim and Wintertusk are going to be treated as two worlds, because I do think both of them, thematically and plot-wise, are so different that even though both of them fall under Grizzleheim, Wintertusk has enough to be its own thing. Hell, Nick Jonas's appearance in Grizzleheim alone justifies him. The fact he's out here promoting a better location is more than enough for me. Story and gameplay-wise, this has to be one of the most nothing segments of the game. Not too harmless, not too wonderful, just right in the middle. It feels especially fetch questy, and the chapter approach isn't doing much help either. To get the maximum enjoyment, you're supposed to come back to this world between Mushu and Spire if for any reason you're under-leveling or out of boredom. So the issues here lie from the story, and then it's just trying to get approval from the Grizzleheim King so then wizards can take down the Raven Coven as they attempt to obliterate the ecosystem through an eternal winter. It's fine. The gameplay is fine. In the end, it was a lost cause. Hell, I don't even really like the place all too much. Exceptionally normal and mundane. But you know what? The teases regarding Grandmother Raven, the Titans, all of that, it's really well done in terms of opening the ideas of showing what would be in Arc 2 and especially 3. Good job, Nick Jonas area. Did I mention Nick Jonas is in this? We should add him more.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Experimental worlds are nothing new in Wizard101. We have locations that are thought to be lost like Aztec, abandoned realms like Chrysalis, and the broken up micro worlds found in Emperia and Lamria. Though I think of all of those, Novvice at least won the prize for being the weirdest. In context, this is a really interesting world. It's meant to be design's perception of the spiral and what everyone needs. As such, it works well because of the setup that came before it in Lamria, a more compelling world in back-to-back gimmick locations. Novvice's weaknesses come from juggling too many plot points, like Design's personal episode continuing from Lemuria. Tons of fun, we like that. Then there's also the Cabal. Alright, and then we have the Allied Parties negotiation. Oh no. Because Novvice is partly based on the European race to Africa, even though it probably isn't true, but it is because every aspect of this is kind of pointing at it. It's very funny. Novvice as a world feels so tiny. Out of every world, it doesn't quite hit the nail of being this large, intricate location that expresses how big it is. Especially since there's like a bunch of teleporting and warping, and it felt kind of blank other than a really cool hub hand area. A good chunk of these locations reuse pre-existing assets or areas with small spins. I get why, but again, it doesn't feel all worthwhile, all being a couple decent-sized towns at best. There's too much going on, and the giant war between each spiral power isn't helping, because there's a huge social conflict between these four nations, plus the Cabal, plus the Manticore, who in terms of being a villain might be the least impactful world antagonist since Arc 1, which is saying something, because literally every single villain besides the major ones, Old Cobb's children, and that stupid Zebra and Zafaria don't stick, because if they did, they would get brought back. I think the only major exception so far was Bellic McCheaty Pants. We like Bellic, he's a top 5 character. You add Bellic, bring him back, this would have been a top 10 world, but oops, I guess not. Anyway, next world.
I miss my wife tales.
Spire is the first finale world of this list, the last world you visit before an arc. I would consider this the most average world in the game, or the next one, you can take your pick. It's got a good backstory and a simple objective of destroy Malastare, and the place really does feel like a fallen empire. It feels like the final Bowser's castle in a Mario game. Yeah, that's about it. Can you really say anything else about Spire? You visit a fallen kingdom, all that remains are spirits and bad people. The backstory is extensive and actually quite fun. Plus Arc 1 combat stays Arc 1 combat. It was early enough to not have astral magic or further layers, but late enough to where that beginner unfamiliarity was starting to go away. So combat is in a sweet spot where you're getting stat checked. Luckily, I didn't do this section alone because I refused to play the game alone from this point on. Wizard101 is so much more fun with other people. At the very least though, this was a good way to have payoff. The final confrontation with Malastare pretty elegantly displays the simplicity and nostalgia lying within the story. It worked, and for good reasons. It's a simple, satisfying end to a prominent character and the story he pushed for, and I was happy to see him go, until he came back. And then he came back again. And then he came back again.
I come from a land down under.
What a weird location. What makes Walaroo such a strange place is just the point in which we visit. It's the only finale world that didn't quite hit that level of intensity. The ending doesn't even take place here. It's ending the international issues set up in Novvice, including the Quartermain gang, who haven't been around since Lamria. They just show up in the finale. In nearly 2 worlds since their last appearance, suddenly crucial climax characters. I think this is the only world I would argue should have not have taken in the time point it did. It should have been after Lamria, with Novvice being the finale spot, and then maybe they rework some stuff and establish the issues of the finale here. Maybe Walaroo goes wrong, maybe you lose in Walaroo, and then Novvice is calming him down while the allied parties all cause conflict, and maybe they're introduced in Australia. Maybe Marlebonians are causing conflict with Walaroo, like the real world history where they put criminals on Australia. Instead, it feels kind of random for the game to go, oh yeah, by the way, we aren't done yet, you gotta go back to Novvice. Whatever. But in the end, Walaroo feels like a classic world. The quest to visit the dreaming across the walkabout, the expansive outback, despite its hiccups, really did feel like there was an intent to quest here through a journey. I really like the land down under segment, claiming the nothing, going on his conceptual world and finding purpose. I personally enjoyed it as the grand finale, good representation of everything I had to say. If there was anything else to change, it's just the story, because again, this feels more like a classic world era of Arc 1 or 2, before things started getting more and more intricate, as all the stupid small children couldn't get further in the game, and so only adults made it to this point. It in specific makes me feel more confident about the future of the game, making me hope that Arc 5 and beyond can combine the best aspects of each world to make a greater story. At the same time, I also hope that more can be done to bring back characters like Santiago. Again, this is One Piece for people into children's MMOs. They gotta remember to bring back these characters met across arcs. Keep this going, and I want this to keep going. Alright, technically this is cheating, but you know what? You can teleport here as its own location, and there's a good amount of fights here, it counts. Following graduation between Arcs 2 and 3, the established quest to find Old Cobb's evil purples finds us with Baba Yaga and the Arcanum, essentially just Wizard City, but again, acting as an excuse to keep learning spells and move up in the wizarding world. Arcanum really has its faults because of what it represents. There is a new hub world. It does the same thing as Wizard City, but as a job. It represents the story becoming more adult, leaving the familiar characters of the past and looking into the future. I enjoy it for having a new group of characters, but I also hate how few classic staples stay relevant from here. There's a little too much identity lost from here onward. But you know, having a base of operations feels way better than a scrappy dorm room area. It brushed off me as the game maturing, being less about the cutesy housemaking and instead the adventure that games of this era like Animal Jam and Toontown shared, and only big fans are gonna make it to this point. You need at least 100 hours to get to this place, and it feels significantly more streamlined. Like, you gotta get the mission done. The craziest thing for me is that we have officially existed in the Arcanum longer than Wizard City, but because of how many people can actually make it to this point, it's just not as iconic. Plus, the fact that free Wizard City forever has led to more players always truly adds life here. It just pales in comparison, unfortunately. At the very least, the occasional returns here between each world felt more necessary. It's them preparing for a voyage to whatever respective world is needed. Because of that, at the very least, I do wish that at least the characters introduced here would show up more often. Like if Emperia and the Nothing are major conflicts, have them show up in these events and be relevant, not just like mentor types. We have spent more time here, and somehow I know almost nothing about any of these NPCs besides Ione and the librarian monkey guy, maybe Xander, that's all. Hey, it's a cool area, it exists as a way to represent how far players have gone. They could have done more with it at points, but overall, it's a good place to recoup for the long haul, and way more efficient to reload on recovery potions and new spells. That's the objective benefit by far. I can appreciate it for at least knowing why it had to exist. There's also that one tree, I don't like sand. Hot take, Mirage has the ugliest segment in the game. Not location, that goes to Caramel. I'm talking about an individual segment. It's mostly the finale taking place in the middle of a sandstorm. It's what's supposed to be a climactic moment setting up a major fight and disadvantage coming into Arc 3 is instead destroyed by the orange particle sandstorm mess. Like we lost Mallory and both major gods want to destroy the spiral, stop the scorpion, mitigate crime, meet a ton of higher positioned people, and prepare for a war that lasts exactly 30 seconds. Old Cobb just got rid of an army and nothing is done about it. He could have easily won here and decided not to. It's his own fault. I like the varied areas. The city simultaneously feels lively in safer areas, but vacant in locations of danger. The introduction of the Cabal adds layers of story here, but weirdly enough, my favorite portion was the intro. Enough to be a top 10 segment of the entire game. It finally explained why Malistaire stole Bartleby's eye at the very start, an 8-year mystery I'm embarrassed I didn't think about. Entering the world door without a proper entry point only to see the desperate environment in need of help help. It's awesome. Plus, Duncan comes back, him being a jealous rival type that's been joining the Cabal since our first confrontation in Wizard City. King's Isle, please do this more. This is awesome. This is great. And that's about all. The Genie's side plot amounts to virtually nothing. Mallory's Soyjack face after failing to Hadouken Satan is forever ingrained in my mind. Anyway, Grizzleheim 2.
Welcome to the Himalayas!
Grizzleheim, but better. Why did this get a commercial over any other world? Good question. This is the only one of the worlds to get an entirely independent commercial dedicated to promoting it. But then it's like a side world. Why was this one composed by Nick Jonas? This feels like such a weird decision. It's even funnier when you realize how short this world is compared to the rest. Like, this can be done in under 10 hours. There's 2 fights tops that are objectively difficult. It's funny how this world is entirely optional, but also insanely important to the initial saga. Like easily a top 5 character in terms of importance shows up in a sequel to a side world. Not to mention, the Ice Titan never appears again in a major role outside of this area. There's a huge emphasis on the 3 Titans. Dragon Titan was a major setup in Arc 1. Storm Titans destroys Celestia and acts as a grand finale to 3 arcs of setup. Here we have a blue guy dangling underground in an optional side area. It's just weird, and how does he have children? Why are they so tiny? Riddle me that, Nick Jonas. Also, does Nick Jonas count for this world or Grizzleheim? He cameos and talks in Grizzle, but then never shows up in Wintertusk. You can interact with him in Grizzle and then never again. It's so weird. Same with the commercial. Why did this in specific have all the cool stuff? But hey, it was a good appetizer to play between worlds, not too annoying. The second half dragged a bit, and the conflict felt weirdly condensed despite the Everwinter stakes being so big, which is actually as bad as losing within arcs 1 and 2. Though I'm glad this wasn't made into an arc. That would have been really bad compared to the rest, but whatevs. I do wish Grandma Raven had more justification into becoming an antagonist teased here. Like, she tells you about being the narrator on your quest, but then the next couple worlds she wants the death of all life? Like, even just a teensy tad, please, just for Nick Jonas. Actually, I wasn't paying attention. Oops. Dude, I'm gonna be so honest, I have no idea how this managed to get even remotely high up in the rankings. Like, Aquila's such a short world, 0 major plot relevance to Wizard101's story, side content, but it's pretty damn fun. You go into 3 quick dungeons with friends, good variety, fun fights. I refuse to let it go higher. It's as short as this segment. When I am older and I think of Wizard101 in the future, one of the worlds I'm gonna think of is Mushu. It's the most Wizard101-y Wizard101 world. It's a relatively simplified story. The gameplay was okay difficulty, a nice grassy biome with a hint of Japanese and samurai culture, plus it feels like a giant location. It's truly massive. That's in part because of the Novvice revisit and the Pirate 101 glow up I haven't reached yet. I'm looking forward to it though. Mushu is such an inherently simple world that I can't put my finger on why it's my favorite of the world's mostly important in Arc 1. There's so little established or consistent at this point that looking back at it, I can't help but appreciate the calm before the storm. I feel like I'm watching season 1 of a shonen, or the first couple seasons of Adventure Time for some unexplainable reason. This is full of sillier minor conflicts that got resolved with occasional major threats, yet the scenery does a ton of justice here, especially being an Arc 1 world. The biggest weakness of Mushu is that there isn't one, but same opposite way around, there's no strengths. I remember in the initial playthrough retrospective, I struggled to extend this portion of the video over a consistent period. It's just pleasant. Stop the Onis causing chaos on Mushu, revive Emperor Yoshihito, and get the world door key to Dragon Spire before Malistaire acts out his plan. So it was even able to have a justified reason for going through on everything. Maybe the palace could have been sealed shut by the second to last Oni, therefore forcing you to take them on before Dragon Spire. That's the only idea I got. You go to this area, talk to generic NPCs. There's no long-lasting characters besides Yoshihito and Muda, I guess. This world is wheat bread, but I like wheat bread. It's good and good for you.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
It's still hilarious to me that Darkmore is a side world, but it's incredibly satisfying for what it represents. Darkmore is technically a dungeon, and I would make the argument that it being a different world allows it on this list. Not the Croctopia dungeon or Waterworks or any of that. This is the only one I played. Darkmore is simply put the spooky, scary world. I'm shocked this game's double dipped on deserts, icelands, all of that before a haunted castle type location. Like, we just had Walaroo to Selenopolis and then possibly Cool Ranch in the future. All these sandy, westerny rock, yeah, there's basically the same biomes. All of that before scary? Unbelievable. unbelievable. I hesitate to put this higher for the sake of it being so short, and it's hard to unanimously agree that this is a full location, but truthfully it doesn't matter because this is a terrific one-shot with a simple goal. Malastare has died and come back too many times. This time he's gotta go permanently. End his life for real this time for realsies. He got killed, then came back, then fell through space for a year. Now he's peer pressuring a vampire man, so he simps and gives Malastare an army. So you go through an extensive dungeon. If you have a good group, this is a session-long world. It's set up as a simple invasion to a confrontation story. Tired of Malimoo's BS. For the sake of it all, he's gotta be put down behind the house. It happens, it comes with an extensive fight and last hurrah for the character, and in the end, Malastare calmly assures that this is the end of his character. So I couldn't be happier. I stress this, but he was the most important character of the initial story. To an extent, he is the mascot. He existed as a barrier, an iconic villain in the minds of a collective generation, and seeing him go truly marked the end of this era of Wiz. It for me reads as the team saying the MMOs of this genre were coming to a close. We're doing our own thing. This, along with graduating and leaving Wizard City behind, truly makes you recognize how far you've come on the quest in this game. There was officially no promises of interacting with Merle or the OG teachers, instead banking on the new faces doing the same thing. It's as important as it is sad to see, but I get it, and I'm happy this was done. As strange as it is, it's fitting that it was a dedicated side world instead of being crammed into another ongoing arc or a dungeon for every fan to experience. Thank you for ending this character. I beg, please don't do time travel or something to bring him back. The only way I'd be okay with it is if our character dies and visits an afterlife, then that would be fine. That would be okay. That's the only way you could confirm a decent chunk of characters getting killed or have them get brought back at all, unless it's just a quill egg. Never mind, I should never be near a writing table.
I can see!
I can fight!
For some reason, I really enjoyed Avalon, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought about how weird it is. And as such, it kept going lower and lower in this ranking. Avalon is the midpoint of Arc 2, and its contributions to the greater story are like 95% backstory, 5% ongoing events. Hell, the climax is just showing the backstory, but to be fair, it's kind of hard seeing this being anything else. Like, the entire point of Avalon is just to be a generic wizard medieval quest doing whatever wizards do traditionally. Not being a hero of the galaxy fighting all sorts of modernized fantasy generations. You're questing like the wizard lord intended. Avalon's set up to be some sort of invasion, but it feels weirdly disingenuous. By that I mean, like, you really can't tell. The story is so minimal and useless, unironically just Lamria but lower stakes. You're going to each segment of Avalon, solving the problems there, and then recruiting the Knights of the Round Table, slowly moving up the ranks. But at the very least, it works here, because it's a return to form, a simple set of quests after raising the climax of Zafaria, putting us in a bad position, needing to retrieve the Sword of Kings, because that's the only thing that can destroy the shadow deck she obtained when winning in Zafaria. Morganth showing up could have added a lie here. Maybe she could have broken up the traditional areas as time continues or something, but I get it. For the amount of buildings I entered, I would have loved to see a proper full tavern area. It makes more sense to have one here than in Polaris. Also, a farm of any sort could have worked. I want to help a farmer defend his crops in a future world, not like Caramel. It's kind of funny to me that there's not an attempt for like a potato farm, for an example. I think that would have worked well. But going back to this Avalon finale, I'm glad it was shown instead of being told. And I would have loved seeing more of it in the modern day, with Morganth not making an appearance here. She took a year off from properly interacting with players of real time, but being an owl was really funny. They should have thought about this in multiplayer. Okay, so fun fact intermission thingy. On the other channel where I did the playthrough, I thought about someday making an abridged version way in the future, crunching the story down to like 40 minutes to an hour tops. About the same as a traditional video on that channel. In fact, before I actually completed Wiz, that was the initial draft, but I literally spent the first 10 minutes of the 4-hour project explaining why I couldn't do that. If I did though, genuinely all I would have said for modern day Avalon on the timeline is, and then after that we head on over to Avalon to get the Sword of the Kings from Merle Ambrose's dear friend Sir Artorias from the beginning. And then you do that. That's the entire summary. That's what I would do. Okay, bye Avalon.
Love you, King Julian!
I'm so confused why this was up here so high, especially the best of Arc 4. I thought I hated Lamria. If Caramel was concerning me regarding Arc 4, Lamria kind of cemented my expectations going forward, good and bad. But it told me this was going to be the same quality and mental space of Arc 1 for different reasons. First off, full stop, design's relevance carries, making the old one, the nothing, design, whatever you want to call this entity, into this individual, discovering what existing is really works. Plus the fact that nothing has to learn his food was a horrible person hellbent on power adds to these layers of of complexity. It's like learning a salad you ate threw puppies off bridges for fun. You'd feel disgusted that it's a part of you as much as you are relieved that it's gone forever. His dialogues are effective, creative, one of the shining pillars of the latter half of Wiz, this world indicating that. I do enjoy the area variety as much as I don't. The idea of that the old ones stitched together a bunch of dying worlds in the spiral is creative. It's just like with Emperia with half a dozen different locations, so it made sense and it added to things to look forward to. But the combat and story are kind of average at best. I enjoyed fighting more than I did in Caramel, but there was still a fair share of annoying fights. I wasn't too happy with that as a result. The general journey here is so video gamey. I know it's a game, but still, as you just recruit heroes, get the MacGuffins, the final showdown was alright though, so it gets a pass. The reason for exploration and scenery does justice here. The intention with nothing is extremely great. It's just that some of these areas that were combined together prevented it from going higher. Genuinely, if the Quartermains remained relevant after their respective segments, or you could do like a Mega Man type situation where you could pick which area to go to first and then recruit everyone, perfect. It would have been so cool. I think this would have been a perfect opportunity to do something like that, but unfortunately never came to be. And that's a bit of a shame.
Private, what happened to our thumbs?
I really do enjoy Polaris for everything except for the plot. Incredible variety for a snow area. Setup, terrific. Combat, faster and easier. Defeat animations are slow, that is fine. New characters, mostly likable and memorable except for the most important one. Mallory is just okay. She gets better though. Go and find the rat and then you go beat the rat. The first third goes to liberating another population, which is something that happens in so many worlds. Again, if Wiz was a show, this is the thing it gets clowned for. But Polaris is incredibly important. I like that the student graduation was the intro of this area. As much as it is sad to see go, I like that the game grew up with us. Even though Wizard City is straight up too iconic at this point, it's part of us forever. Good effort though. But yeah, the Penguin stuff isn't exactly my forte. The city's fine, the intention is good enough, but in a game full of freeing oppressed groups, it's weird that it's so common as it is. This squad doesn't really stand out all too much. But that's just me. Like, Polaris was great. I had a wonderful time chasing that pesky rat. If I did anything, all I could say is maybe tease more of what could have come with harder payoff, but I'm sure there's plenty of reasons that wasn't done. King's Isle, if you're watching this one, please speed up the death animations. This is such a weird nitpick, but it's been stuck here for so long. It makes me oh so sad. I already gotta watch the penguins die. It doesn't need to be in slow motion. Africa. You go to Safaria, shatter the kneecaps of anyone Morganth sends. It's got that zebra that's a freaking dingus. Lovely little area with plenty of variety. Other than the Greyhorn mercenaries, thought it was pretty darn doodling quick. Didn't take too long to beat, assuming you have 3 overleveled players in your squad. Backstory and current story are simple, but good exposition, establishing the Council of Light as they exist, and ending off with Morganth getting the Deck of Shadows, which does something. Bellic's debut established this as a game that's gonna haunt my dreams forever, and I'm genuinely baffled by people who think they can do moments like these alone for fun. Why would you subject yourself to such torment? I would say the worst part was maybe how much telling was done over showing each specific species of the 4 factions. Like, lions get way too much of the story compared to gorillas. The Savannah segment was probably the worst as well anyway, just being kind of isolated compared to the condensed cities explored in later portions. Good world, bring back Bellic, and that zebra, I love how much they bother me.
The moon!
I am dumbfounded I love this area as much as I do. It's mostly because of reusing resources that make my brain go burr. I don't care how far we've strayed from classic worlds and Merle's comfy little academy. I'm just happy we actually started cultivating a group of familiar friends that all return at once. I really hope this stays. It was a great thing to see again. Now, gameplay-wise, it's Croctopia but with a fresh coat. It makes sense on account of being an extension of Croctopia. I do hope Arc 5 isn't entirely just revisiting old worlds, though if we do, I hope it's just Wisteria that gets that treatment. I would like to see it explored better. I will say I'm not a big fan of how the quests were split up. There's only 29 of them. You can choose whichever ones to do first, so it was definitely possible to do back in Lamria. My issues mostly come with how long they are. The difference between a quest in Zafaria and a quest in here is way too wide. Like, this is a world as long as Wintertusk, and it has 50 quests. Nah, but truth be told, this is straight up a good return and setup for the future of the game. I hope it gets used more. Also, please make Croctopia free permanently. Like, with the refresh and now this world, I feel like it needs more of that.
Rats, where the rats?
I gotta stress this, if we're looking at the first half of Chrysalis by itself, it would be with Novvice on this ranking. It's that level of annoying backtrack, but the second half, That's pretty good. Chrysalis was the first time a world was broken up in 2 updates, and unlike when Emperia did it, you can tell, the goal is really similar to Spire: stop the bad guy from doing the bad thing. The difference is that Malastare didn't prioritize his army or defenses, just trying to get his mission completed out of desperation or aimlessness he was going through. Meanwhile, Morganth recognizes what we're capable of and needs to mitigate any sort of risk for the sake of her plan, and so this invasion of the world she took over feels really significant. I like that as we continue forward, we go from populations resisting Morganth to ones that live closer by as part of her army. The infiltration feels more gradual, something I was pleased to see across the area. It also comes to show how far this adventure has come and how much better they all got setting this up. Like, the city of Sardonyx feels more original and has more aura than all of Marleybone. Part of that comes from the icky British, but the point's still the same. Part 1 follows the Mouseketeers, the Burrowers, like Devim, we like Devim, as they defend the remaining territory from the Bugs and Morganth's army. This feels more scrappy and desperate in their respective cities, but at the same time takes so long. The fact that all of part 1 and a chunk of 2 takes place on the bottom right felt so bad to endure as you go back and forth. Afterward, I had fun though. Weirdly enough, the final fight irks me more than it should. I just think weirdly this is the least climactic location of the 4 arcs. Xibalba feels like a better finale than just a couple rooms in a castle. I think less time should have been spent in the caves and more in this castle, or it could have been established that we are above the depths of space. Good closure, pretty average villain defeat. I'm glad Old Cobb was introduced here, Choopo approved.
Dinosaur office, roar!
Alright now fellas, the common consensus on respective worlds isn't all too good. Like, all of them are loved and hated by some people. That's why I don't feel all too bad about the specific placements of the respective areas. I'm reflecting my genuine thoughts and memories taken from each world, good and bad. But when I get to Azteca, my mind just goes, oh, I don't know if I'm too confident about this one. Now, Azteca is, in my eyes, one of the most controversial areas, and at least one little dweeb listening to this as background noise is gonna start growling with rage like the little scoundrel they are. But I had a good time here because of the multiplayer aspect. The difficulty spike was welcome, in part because I wasn't suffering alone. This story here is fun for what it had to be. You go to the nicest, best character in Marleybone, they discover Azteca and find out it's in danger, and then you go enter the world. It feels like this massive place and stakes are established from the get-go. Like Morganth is trying to unleash a giant meteor in Azteca and also obtain the ability to rewrite the spiral. It's one of the few moments where it feels like there's constantly a looming threat attempting to halt you, with traders joining Morganth because they genuinely thought she had the potential to rewrite the spiral, so they did what they could to save themselves. The surprise return of Bellic and Malastare were neat. The former was just happy to see a familiar face get decimated. Malastare at the time I would have hesitated considering his motives in Arc 1, but Darkmore has saved my opinions. The climax was really solid, following players as they confront Morganth on Xibalba, the scary asteroid. Overall, an important collection of fights followed by a loss. Hot take, I'm happy Azteca was a failed mission. With Xibalba being unleashed and destroying the fragile planet across years and years and not actually doing anything besides permanently destroying the sky of the world. Cool change. Why isn't this removable in the game settings though? Or is it? I don't know, I'm stupid. I think that's been well established. Like, obviously in the end, Morganth wasn't gonna win, but actually establishing a loss is really cool. I love me some stories where the good guys lose, and this is Azteca-rific. Please don't click off yet, we're almost done.
You're a Harry wizard.
I love how Wizard City is a floating island and how it feels like that. Like, even though each area is a floating island in the spiral, there's so few that properly execute this idea like they're floating, like they're in the sky. This, Azteca, Emperia, Novvice, Spire, technically Croc, and Marleybone are the ones I think do it well, but so few of them execute it in a way to where it feels creative. I like how it's done in Pirate 101. It feels like Treasure Planet. But guys, come on, it's a hub. It's the starting area. It's the iconic one. Nothing else was possible if this one wasn't good. It's such a simple location done really well. When the game comes to consoles, I hope the new fellas playing spend time absorbing this area. My favorite aspect about it is just the fact it's still active after all this time, with the technical exception of Croctopia because it's the first world after this, and then like Azteca because there's so many people who get stuck here. You don't really see this. Wizard City is home. It's the place you hold nostalgia for and wonder what else is out there. Looking ahead, I was excited to see where I was gonna go from here. I can't quite describe how I felt. Just knowing the worlds and arcs ahead, unsure of where I was gonna go, just excited to find out where this game was gonna take me and what truly stood in Wizard101. I never had the chance to look into this game, and I was finally gonna do that. And had this world not been as good as it was, it never would have happened. I never would have made a 4-hour director's cut of a thing that I technically enjoy. This is unrelated, I'm never playing World of Warcraft. You're out of your mind if you think I'm gonna do that or make a video on that. Keep that away from me. Characters include Merle Ambrose as the game mascot, Cyrus Drake, Bartleby. These 3 alone make it so Wizard City is always needed. There would always be some sort of relevance in Wizard City until you graduate in Arc 3, which makes me upset with Arc 4's split even more. I feel like in specific, this has made Wizard101 start to drift away from the nostalgia factor. It feels like when you watch a show go on for too long and all the main characters are different, some of them leave or are recasted, but I'm sure there's gonna be some tweaks. I just wish that instead of introducing more characters constantly, some of them came back more often. It's unironically why the next world's my favorite. Oh look, the best world in the game. Emperia's at the end of Arc 3, the 13th main world and the second 2-part world, going from November 2017 to November 2018. It's a satisfying end to content that's been teased and set up across the entire game. It has characters from across Polaris and Mirage, yet goes further beyond that. Grandmother Raven's been around since the start as the narrator, and Wintertusk, she takes full moves as an antagonist. Grandfather Spider's been the major threat introduced back in Chrysalis, but teased before that. The Council of Light actually shows up and does something. Bartleby has his setup and story come to a close. Arc 3 could have literally been the ending of this franchise and it would have been fine. Like all major plot points and setups, and the only thing remaining, I guess, being the climax awakens the nothing for Arc 4 and the Cabal, but the Cabal weren't even doing too well in my opinion, so I'm indifferent. There's justification for the world variety, being that this is a micro collection of worlds. As they get smaller, the closer they are to the heart of the spiral, which, yeah, that is something that checks out. In fact, my biggest gripe with Emperia, I think, has to be that the world icon only represents the first area, which is one of the weaker ones. The squid area is yucky, but the final fight is neat. The aerial shore, because it's not my thing and more time could have been looked at the castaway village. Athenor has an okay gimmick. Xanadu is a very nice average city. Chaos Jungle Ring is such a cool premise, and then it's just used a little bit. Aeroplanes is really pretty. This is contender for my favorite looking area. The Nimbus Society was also a cool addition, and the heart of the spiral was incredible. I just wish the Storm Titan was a little bit less ugly, and who knows, maybe you should have brought all the Titans back. And then the Nexus, for the first time in this video, I have nothing negative to say. It's perfect for the context and the moment of the story. I'm not gonna add more. It's a good place with characters and moments I enjoy a ton. It could have ended there, and if you want to hear more, watch the big videos if you haven't. It makes me incredibly excited to see Arc 3's return in Selenopolis. It makes me think we're gonna see more of these characters. But with that being said, that's about all. If I rank the arcs from worst to best, it would go 1, 4, 2, 3. 1 and 4 can be swapped based on the mood I'm in, and 5 doesn't count because it's not done yet. It's funny how little people actually agree with the world rankings, but please recognize that this is my opinion, and note that this is based off, again, a single blind playthrough with other people, reliant on documenting the story. But I look forward to seeing where it goes from here. You know, I may not show it, but I do really like Wizard101 in a weird Stockholm-y way. I don't know how much of my content can actually be dedicated to this type of stuff, but I'm a sucker for wizard adventures, especially when I'm retelling my own adventure. I'd love doing more rankings if you fellas are up for it. Let me know. Subscribe while you're at it. It goes a long way. Watch some of the other videos if you're into it. I'd love to do more stuff like this again. Or not. Okay, bye.